Hello, my name is Tommy Kaw, and I am the 2021 Aperture and Baxter St Next Step Award recipient.
I'm Dawn Chan, and I'm the curator of Ghost Bites.
One of the first pieces that I thought about and made for the show was this floor piece that we're sitting on. I'm drawing from a memory of how my family would put newspapers down before we eat, and then we put like a hot plate, we put out these raw, uncut food or prepared food and make all kinds of dishes together. And that was something I really wanted to center the show on. Not just something familial, but for this kind of community as a theme.
So shrines are clearly a recurrent motif in the show, and I know you've talked about how shrines themselves are somewhat like photography, and you see photography kind of not just as a medium that captures or preserves, but that actually transports or pays homage to it, much as shrines do as well. So are you kind of seeing shrines as a way to reframe photography itself?
I just see the parallels of the shrines and picture making to be really similar. The ritual of praying, lighting incense, and putting them in the pot for the altar. The archaicness of that ritual and drawing the parallel to taking out the camera, putting it in front of your eye, repositioning ourselves and doing that dance. I feel like those two are really connected. I think it also takes the form of something very Asian, but also acts as like a still life. I've come from a self-portrait background, so I think performance is a connecting factor to a lot of things. I wanted the shrines I've been accumulating over the years to be the through line. To me, they're like these miniature tableaus. These still lives are a result of these performances. Some Buddhist, some Taoist, some only my family would do, and really love the color of them a lot, and finding them out in the world. And what photography is these portals to the past, right? The shrines are that, the photograph is that, so it just kind of made sense to have them run through behind the frame, behind in and out of the gallery space itself. The title of the show is Ghost Bites. It is a phrase my aunt would use to explain away how I got bruises as a kid. So I'd like to tie that in a little bit with this kind of inherited trauma and generational differences, and not how photography has played a role with my family, but how it has influenced how we perceive ourselves. So it was really important to have my mom's work present in the book in context to my own. It's a very recent discovery that she also made pictures the year after she fled Vietnam, and never told me about them until quite recently. And I wanted her voice to be somehow intertwined into my work in the book. Ultimately, I wanted with the show to act as different examples of how much the past continues to reverberate and haunt our contemporary landscape. I think community is super important, and I'm trying to consider that with my picture making. It didn't feel easy having a solo show and trying to talk about community when it's really centered from my experiences. So an extension of this show next door is the Chain Letter Project. So over the last year since Christina Unit Lee's murder, I was passing disposable cameras around, giving my friends prompts. I gave disposable cameras to my Asian American Pacific Islander friends from across the country. Some are filmmakers or artists themselves, or just not artists at all. And it is photographs in the last year. The idea was to try to get a slice of life, of people's experiences, and overlap them, ultimately covering my own pictures that are the backbone of behind everyone else's work, because I felt I wanted to make it less about my voice and more about theirs, and trying to glean some sort of diaristic way of how we moved and navigated in the last year, especially with everything violent that was happening and things that my parents' generation dealt with in the South that's still continuing on currently. I did a DNA test through 23andMe, and they offered a service where you can hear what your DNA would sound like. And my cousin came in and listened to it and wrote down the chords for me. And I started collaborating with my musician friends, and they all started to interpret the chords and directly as string music or this looping soundtrack that kind of plays in the background of the show. Bubblegrams, you see through these images, these ghostly images, and you hear this kind of music playing as well, and there's these things in the peripheral, and it's really trying to haunt you in some way. I worked with Leslie Martin over at Aperture and Studio Lynn on the design of the book Half Full Quarter, and I think it was the first time that anyone looked at these different ideas and projects that I've been doing for a while in a way that kind of ties a lot of things I've been thinking about, finding or arriving at my representation, or this kind of survey of Asian American experiences in the South, particularly immigration perspectives, especially my parents, great-grandparents have immigrated or fled countries in the last century, and then having to make work that is always about the awkwardness of not just about belonging in a space, but kind of finding this choreography, this dance between placing the camera, myself, and the world, and trying to be part of the picture, but instead just almost always being the thing that's out of place, that doesn't belong there. None of that would be possible without the Next Step Award, with the resource, the access to work with someone like Leslie and Aperture and dealing with the aspects of sequencing, designing, laying out a book. Don Chan had a really great hand. Jesse and Jill also helped with putting together the show, putting up the photo corners and listening to my wacky ideas. So I would like to acknowledge Don and Jill and Jesse. I'd like to thank the 7G Foundation and the Leonian Foundation, and Sydney and everyone else. I would come out a lot to Camera Club, especially when they're in their old Hell's Kitchen location before Baxter St. The really rich history, long history of being in New York for so long. So it's quite an honor to be here.